Hello everyone. Welcome back to our discussion of process costing. Specifically, we're going to demonstrate how we might set up a problem with the kind of information that you might be given in a homework or test situations, and the kind of thing that you would want to be able to do. And I've set this up in Excel. This is not how you have to do it, but it seems to work pretty well. We're going to show it the 5-step process. We're going to show how it impacts the T accounts, all that good stuff, so that you can see the whole thing. This is the kind of information that would be given in a problem like this. So at the beginning of November, they had 70,000 units in production. They were 100% complete for direct materials and 65% complete for direct labor and overhead. So we know from that statement that there are 70,000 units in beginning work in process. So in step one, our physical units, knowing where they are, we need to know how much we had in beginning. And during November, we started 480,000 units in production. So we had 70 beginning. Okay, we started at 480 more. So the total, that the most we could have is 550,000, right? So we also need some information at the end when we do our freeze frame, if you will. 62,000 units of production that were 100% complete. So right now, we're not so worried about percent complete. We just need to know where our physical units are. And at the end, we have 62,000. Okay? So now, we don't see anything specific about how many were transferred to the next department or to finished goods, depending on how many departments there are. In this case, there's only one. So you go through one department and then you go to, you're finished. So we know that the amount of transferred plus the ending has to equal 550. All right? So if we put in, we just need a number that is 550 minus 62, right? 488 must have been transferred. So as long as you have 3 of these 4 numbers, you can get the 4th, right? I mean, if you're missing 2, now it becomes a problem. But if you're missing any one of those, and you know the others, you can figure out, because it has to equal 550 and 550. Okay, so that's step one. We know where all our units are. Okay, 488,000 were completely finished and transferred to finished goods, and the other 62,000 units are partially done. And we do know, okay, what their completion percentage is. It does say that right here in this statement here. So for direct materials, they are 100% complete, it says. So we multiply that by 1, or just don't multiply by anything because it's just 62,000. So we transferred this, and we've done all the work on these 62,000, even though they're not transferred, because they're not done for materials, for labor and overhead. But they are done for materials. But they're still in work in process because they're not done with the other steps. And then we say that they are 40% complete for direct labor and overhead. So the same percentage completion for those two, which means we could combine those two columns if we so choose. I still separated them, direct materials, direct labor, and overhead in this illustration. So it makes it really easy to see, but you can combine them because they are the same percent complete. So that means that we're going to take 62,000 times 40%, 0.4. 62,000 times 0.4. All right. So to get our equivalent units, we add the units transferred, which is the same for direct materials, direct labor, and overhead, and add to it the work in process, what we've worked on, completed so far, okay? 62,000, 24.8, and 24.8. So our equivalent units for direct materials is 550. Our equivalent units for direct labor and overhead is the same at 512, 800. Okay, so that's the end of step 2. We haven't even dealt with any dollars yet, any amounts yet. It's all been in units. So now we start dealing with the costs. Beginning costs. So it looks like the costs in the work in process at the beginning were 630. So this is on the beginning of November. It might say the cost on November 1st. It may say at the end of October, right? Which would be the same as what the beginning of November. 630,000, 925 for direct materials, and 744,000 for overhead. If you combine the direct labor and overhead columns, then you're going to combine the direct labor and overhead costs. But we're keeping them separate for now, so we just put that in the beginning. Now I have automatic formulas that are going to add my total costs as I put in the numbers. The added costs, and remember the added costs would be debits to our work in process. Okay? Whoops. We need another zero there. 2.9 million. Added 4.4 million for direct labor and 3 million for overhead. So when we did our department work in process, our beginning amount would be those three numbers added up, right? That's what our beginning work in process. And then we added, so the same numbers. This is what our journal entries would look like. Okay. And we could make the, let's see, let's get the, our materials would come from our raw materials account, and our labor and overhead will just have come from accounts payable or wages payable. Okay, so that's kind of how we would be. There's the other side of those entries. Of course, this carries over from last year, so we don't have an offsetting entry. Okay, but that's how our journal entry. So our work in process, if we didn't get anything done, we'd still have $13 million in our work in process. Now, back to our 5 steps. The third step is just completed when you've added up the costs. Step 4 is the cost per equivalent unit. This is where we want to be careful we don't make mistakes. And that is we take the total cost divided by the equivalent units. So this is direct materials column. So we're going to take the direct materials cost divided by direct materials equivalent units. This is going to be the direct labor divided by direct labor equivalent units. And finally, the overhead. Cost per equivalent unit total, add those 3 across. We may have some rounding going on here. Okay. Sum them up. And you've got $25.57. So if I want to know what I'm going to transfer to finished goods, step 5, I take the transferred units times the cost per unit. Okay? I can do it individually by direct materials times 642 equals the direct materials transferred, direct labor times 1038 transferred, 488 times 876 times transferred. Or I could just do a shortcut, 488 times 2557, and get the 12. I can add those three, or I can just 488 times 2557 to get that. Either way should give us roughly the same number. Okay, that's going to be transfer to finished goods. Credit, work in process, Department A, finished goods. This is your ending amount of the T accounts. Here's your debits when we added the cost. Here's our transfer cost, $872,793. Then we can check ourselves. Step 5 is also about checking ourselves, and to check ourselves by taking our cost per equivalent unit by the ending work in process units in equivalent units. Again, cost per equivalent unit times ending work in process in units. And again, those added up, summed across 872, 793. We did our work right. Then it should equal our work in process for Department A. So that's how you could set it up. Show all of your work, show your journal entries, show your T accounts. Okay, you might have some sales, cost of goods sold. You would use the 2557 to record any cost of goods sold for the units that you sold during that accounting period as well.